Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and how are you?
I am pushing through. I am persevering. I think I'm getting sick again.
Love
Surprise. Just keeps
Love
happening. But I'm feeling positive that we're on the outset of summer and coming into
you.
real it was
You
hot
say,
today,
yeah, I was like, you
but
say that like someone who doesn't work a 10-month job.
look, I would work however many days and years and months you want me to work if I could just get rid of summer. I do not want the heat. It was warm. It got warm today, but my apartment hasn't been stifling in a few days, which is nice. So
Yeah.
I think we're coming out of it. So I'm unwell, but I'm okay. How are you?
Great. Yesterday was mine and Dan's 14 months, which is not a real anniversary, but we just
It's
like
not.
to keep, well, it's not, but so his aunt and uncle have for their entire marriage, the number day of the month that is their anniversary, they have always had a date night that day every month, even if they don't get any time for just the two of them at all for the rest of the month, they always have that day as like
It's very cute.
a date. And so that is something that Dan and I do as well. I mean, we do also spend every single fucking day with each other, so it's fine.
Sure.
Um, but so he came over to hang out with me yesterday, and we played Monopoly. Like,
I love
and
Monopoly. Which one?
we played Monopoly Gamer, which is a Mario version of Monopoly that has different rules, so it has a set ending point rather than you just playing forever. And
Oh,
he
okay.
fucking destroyed me. Like almost doubled my points. So
Well, it happens
what
sometimes.
what I did was then told him that we had to also play a round of Trivial Pursuit so that
Mm.
I could laugh in his face. And I
I
did.
love both of those games.
I it wasn't really fair because I had questions about like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie and Tina, the llama
Mm,
from Napoleon Dynamite. And
sure.
he had questions about things that I had never even heard of. So like it wasn't entirely fair, but I still won, and that's what matters.
That's all that matters. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then we played Mario Kart with my dad. It was just a good night. It was nice.
I love that.
It was a good
I
day.
love that.
Today was not a good day, so I'm just pretending it's still yesterday.
I like it. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do it.
Um, you know what would make today a little bit better though?
Would it be some spirituality?
I think so. I think I need some Jesus or Jesus adjacent things in my life.
Well, that is not what I'm here to offer you today. If you've met me and are aware of how I function, because after this we'll be talking about The Exorcist. So, oh Jesus. But I do have some spiritual guidance for you, and it's the best I have to offer. So,
Okay.
never be afraid to fall apart because it is an opportunity to rebuild yourself the way you wish you had been all along. Ray Smith.
Fine. I guess I'll take it.
Look, it's what you get. So,
Well, in terms of other things that I guess we'll take, um, today's episode of Stargate SG-1 is a thing. Um,
it is an episode.
yeah. So today we're talking about Stargate SG-1, Season 4, Episode 7, entitled Watergate. Um,
Which is not about the political
no,
scandal.
no, there's no Richard Nixon anywhere in this episode.
I
Um,
looked for it.
it was rated 7.5 stars,
Yeah.
which is slightly low. but also I don't know. It was an episode. And it was well. Um, I mean, it was another one of those episodes that like wasn't great, but had ramifications that are important, but like whatever.
Right. Yeah. It felt like because like it felt like it was kind of continuance on from like I mean from the first episode of the season, but
Yeah.
it just didn't hit very hard.
Um, it came out on August 11th, 2000. We have the same book, song, and movie from 2 days ago
Right.
slash 1 week ago. The only news I could find at all, and I spent quite a lot of time looking, was that Madonna's son with Guy Ritchie was born today.
Oh, happy birthday, Madonna's
Yeah,
son.
yeah, like Rocco maybe was his name. I don't fucking know. Rococo.
Yeah. Either of those. Both are right.
Yeah. Um, the episode was directed by Martin Wood, written by Robert C. Cooper, and edited by Rick Martin. So again,
Movies.
nothing to talk about. But the half a page I have written down for the next thing I'm going to talk about. Our guest star this week is Marina Sirtis, who played Dr. Svetlana Markov. She is known for Star Trek, for everything
Okay.
Star Trek. I know this means nothing to you, but she played Deanna Troi in Star Trek The Next Generation, which was a series regular on the show. She was the ship's counselor. And since The Next Generation, she has been in every iteration of Star Trek,
Oh.
minus three, I think. So she was in all of the movies post The Next Generation. She was on Voyager. She was on Enterprise. She's even been on Lower Decks, which is an animated Star Trek. She has not been on Prodigy that I'm aware of, and she wasn't in Discovery and Strange New Worlds, but Discovery and Strange New Worlds are prequel shows, so it makes sense they're about characters that were way before her time.
What about Picard? Was she in that one?
She was in Picard, yes.
Great.
Yes. She's originally born in London to Greek immigrants. She moved to the States and got the role on Star Trek very early in her career of acting. And her mom thought she was lying about the role to stay in America. Her mom literally thought she made this show up to stay in America. And it wasn't until season 4 of The Next Generation that her mom believed her that she had a job.
This is something my mom would do. My mom would totally think I made something like if I came up with something like this.
Yeah.
She would think I was lying.
She is still so close to the Star Trek people that 3 different cast members were in her wedding party.
Oh, that's nice.
And her husband was a musician, a guitarist named Michael Lemper, whose name sounds really familiar, but every single website I see that says what is he famous for, it's being married to Marina Sirtis. So like,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
I don't know what he did musically. But they got married in 1992, and they were married until 2019, when unfortunately he passed away at 61 years old. It was
so sad.
It was sudden and tragic, but on her social media, she said he died peacefully, and she was glad that he was in peace. But they had no kids by choice. And she actually deactivated all of her social media shortly after she announced his death. So there's not really anything more recent than that on her on the internet. But
interesting.
She's pretty cool. She likes going to Comic Cons because she likes meeting people. But obviously, she hasn't been to any recently because
you've been to all of them.
Well, yeah, but also because it's a weird time, and the people who are meeting at Comic Cons right now are in a really tricky place with what they can and cannot say or talk about or do, and it's weird. People who are in active franchises who are at Comic Cons are having a very difficult time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, so Marina Sirtis is our guest star. She is lovely. And I said, oh, the guest star for this episode is Marina Sirtis. And Dan just goes, Troy's in this episode? And I was like, yes, Troy's in this episode.
I love it.
And then I had a really hard time not calling her Troy while I was talking about her in the notes, even though the characters are very different. But it was, you know, she's only been like Jana Troy in like 800 different things. So it's fine.
Sure.
We start this episode with SG-1 trying to go out on a mission, but the gate won't dial out. So while they're trying to figure out why the gate is not dialing out, they see that the power spike that happened in their system right before they tried to dial out matches what happened when they found the gate in Antarctica. But since they destroyed the second gate when it blew up on Thor's ship, they don't know where this other gate could be coming from. So they're like, okay, well, let's look for a corresponding seismic activity, because that's how we knew for sure where the second gate was when we found it in Antarctica in the first place. And they find the corresponding seismic activia yogurt. They find some yogurt in central Siberia. Because, of course, there's a gate in Russia.
Well, what else would you expect?
Right. And then we get the credits. So, like, starting off strong here.
Yeah. I just put, well, that's bad news.
Yeah. You know, I mean, the thing is, on Monday when I watched the episode, I was like, oh, the next episode, it's about Russia. And Dan goes, but it's called Watergate. And Doug goes, yeah, because it's about a gate in water. And I go, no, it's not. It's about Russia. And Dan was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That was me and Dan, that was my exact feelings today watching this episode after reading the title. I was like, this is about Russia. That is unrelated. And I was like, oh, we're being literal here. There's a literal
Yes.
Watergate.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, fun facts. So after the credits, we find out that the Russians found the gate at the bottom of the ocean post the Thor crash and have figured out how to open it, despite it taking SGC years. And their lead scientist is a lady named Dr. Svetlana Markov, who is like obsessed with Sam and fought to keep the project open, even though the Russian government wanted to just bomb their facility and cover it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totes cool.
And so the big problem here, not the biggest problem, I mean, the big problem is that Russia has a gate, but the bigger problem is that they've gotten it open, but can't get it to close, even though they've somehow surpassed the 38-minute window that the wormhole can be sustained.
Yeah. New information that contradicts old information. That's my favorite thing about Stargate.
You know. Dr. Markov has convinced the government in Moscow to let SG-1 be the team that comes to Siberia to help them, which Jack is obviously thrilled about. And Sam and Daniel politely remind him that they can't use the gate or get the 7 SG teams that are off-world back to the base until they get this wormhole closed, so they will in fact have to go to Russia.
Yes, yes.
So they meet Dr. Markov, who knows all about them in like the creepiest way ever.
Oh my gosh. It's like, I know this came out in 2000, but it's like if we were in the Today Times and someone went and like internet stalked you. Like, and
Yeah.
she did it with paper files, it seems. or like online files or something that she had. Like, very impressive, very impressive.
Heard about how creepy the Mormon church is with genealogy?
Um, have I heard about how creepy the Mormon church is? Yes. With genealogy, no.
Okay, I saw this TikTok of an ex-Mormon who was like, just so you know, if your family has been in America for more than a generation, the Mormons know everything about you. And
Like,
I was
even if you're
like,
not Mormon?
correct. And I was like, that's weird. And it has to do with the whole like posthumous baptizing things that they do and the creepy shit that they do. But so I was like, okay, that's weird. And she, in the video, gave you the site to look up. So I went to this Mormon website and I typed in my like dad's name and it told me my dad, my brother, my grandpa, and my great grandpa, all with the same name with the correct birthdays and cities.
Is it True People Search?
No.
That's how I look up. What is
No,
it
it's
called?
I don't remember, but it's something to do with the
Okay,
LDS. But then
no.
you can't get into the actual files unless you have an LDS account. Like you have to like join the church to see their files.
So anyone who is Mormon listens to us, or ex-Mormon, whatever. I don't know if you can still access it. I need access to this information. I will
Yeah.
not use it for evil, only for good, but and nosiness. It's
Um,
strictly because I'm nosy.
correct. Um, yeah, it's fucking weird. So, that's all I could think of when she was just like telling them information about themselves. I was like, oh, she's just Mormon.
But not in America, so she would know.
That's true. That's
Mhm.
true. Yeah. Um, where was I? Oh, so then she tells them about finding the gate post Thor and how the government wanted to expose the SGC and force the US government to share alien technology with them. But she convinced them that using their own military and looking on their own would be better than trusting the Americans.
Which, like, all of that tracks.
Yeah. Um, and she's talking about it, and Sam's like, how did you even like use the gate? And she's like, we had a dialing device. So it turns out the Egyptian dialing device that has been missing, that is the whole reason they had to rig the SGC and create computer ways of programming the
Mm-hmm.
Stargate, was stolen by the Nazis and then confiscated by the Nazis by Russia, which
Right.
also 100% tracks with real history.
Also tracks. Yes. Yes. Correct.
Um, So then, whenever they use their gate by connecting the DHD, they can make their gate the priority entrance, and then they disconnect the DHD when they're not using it so that the Americans didn't find out that they were using it, which is so scary.
It is. It is so scary. That means
Uh,
Stargate could be real.
Also, speaking of scary and Russia, that guy who led the coup against Russia a couple months ago, who was trying to like help with the war in Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he died in a mysterious plane crash today. Doug and I
What?
want to. Oh yeah, no,
Oh
yeah, he disappeared.
no. That's oh no, that's also bad news.
Yeah, I am surprised he lasted that long, and
I mean, yes.
Doug is confused as to why he got into a plane that did not have U.S. military on it.
I mean, look, so probably wasn't super voluntary, if I had to
Also,
guess. So I'm gonna guess he didn't make the choice to do that.
yeah,
Wow, that's a real bummer.
yeah, Russia kind of. I was like, I love how it's 23 years later and Russia is still this scary.
Yeah, they're terrifying. That's why we have that's why we have people like Pussy Riot who are like rebelling
That's why you have like people like
against
who?
Pussy Riot. They're the musical collective.
Oh no, your speaker just got real fuzzy and
Oh,
it sounded like
I'm
you
so sorry.
said nothing that was words.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yes. No, I did say words. They were giving the what do you got for a word this year? with the Woody Guthrie Center 10th year anniversary. I saw the performance.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Um, then we also find out that because we're in the middle of Siberia, the runway for the plane is iced over, and Dr. Markov just very matter of factly is like, cool, we're jumping out of the plane.
Totally cool. Totally, yeah.
Teal'c is not impressed with parachutes.
I am Teal'c. I am Teal'c. I do not do heights or probably parachutes. I don't know. I have not been in that position. I do not plan to be in that position. But yeah. No, I was like, yeah, I'm with you, Teal'c.
The other day, Dan and I were driving and we saw a parachute out over the water, and he goes, "Oh my God, someone's like somebody jumped, like he thought somebody had like parachuted." And I go, "I'm gonna go ahead and say they're just parasailing." And he goes, "Oh, that makes way more sense."
Yes. We had a guy who used to parasail like over our house, like our neighborhood, back in my neighborhood. Just
Yeah.
like every so often you'd see him. But like, could you imagine the first time you ever hear about a parachute is also like the moment you're wearing it and have to use it? Like, of course Silk is terrified.
He's like,
I'm terrified and I know what parachutes are. I've known for years.
He's like, "This doesn't feel wise." And Jack goes, It's not, but it is safe. Like you're right, wise and safe are not always the same thing. Um, um, but so while Teal'c is busy being not impressed with parachutes, Markov is busy being not impressed with Jack because he is just so sassy. And she asks Sam if he's always like this. And Sam's like, actually, no, he's being really charming today.
Yeah. I was like, oh, Jack, bless your heart.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Oh my God, speaking of Sam and Jack, I saw something on Reddit that was like, piss off a franchise in one sentence. And it just said they had no chemistry. Right?
Even I know that. Like, and I don't know many things about Stargate. I know many things. I just don't know many things about Stargate. Let me rephrase.
Uh, Jack can't get Daniel and Teal'c on the radio until they arrive at the facility because there's some kind of like weird bubble around the facility. But then we get there and we find out that it's a decommissioned experimental power station because of course it is. We're in the middle of Siberia.
Russia.
We're like 5 seconds away from being the Delatovsky Pass.
Like this is the absolutely like most terrifying like place in the world, probably, other than the bottom of the ocean. Like those are the two like most dangerous places in the world. Middle of nowhere, Siberia, and the bottom of the ocean. My friend's from Siberia.
Oh, is it scary?
She told me, "Oh, this is fun." I don't know if this is fun, but it's a fact. They like all were brought up like super military-esque, and so like she was talking about how quickly she can like put a gun together and like shoot it like an assault rifle, and she learned it when she was like, I think she said like 12 at like camp or something. Like, it was insane. Like some of the training she talked about that they do, like
great.
Yeah, so they're prepared before we even like think about them. But I just watched another show that they took all the prisoners to the middle of Siberia. I don't remember what it was now, and it was
it Stranger Things?
I haven't watched Stranger Things yet.
Oh. Me either. I just know that somehow Hopper ends up in Siberia.
No, I don't know what I was watching. I feel like it was Marvel. We'll go with that.
Okay. But so they find Teal'c and Daniel, and before they go to the central controls, Daniel's like, "Hey, I think you should probably see this." And there are 3 soldiers who are shot, but also there are a shit ton more who are just still dead. Like they open the gate room and literally everyone is dead.
So many dead people. And I couldn't tell at first. I was like, are they shot? Like, is that blood on their shirt? Or was it like but then they had the mask on, so I was like, was it like a poisonous gas? Like, what's happening here?
Oh yeah. So after they landed, when they go into the experimental thing, they are all wearing gas masks to walk into the power chamber, like just in case.
Right. Yeah. You never know. You never know.
Um, but they once they get into the main control room, they are able to take their gas masks off because the air is fine. And it turns out that at some point yesterday, the colonel on the base enacted a protocol that releases nerve gas and kills everyone.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but
So good on them wearing their mask.
Jack's like, okay, so they released the thing that kill everyone, but some of them were shot, which means they were shot first, and I want to know why. Clearly, like, because clearly something happened
Yeah.
to make them want to release this agent with the nerve gas. So Daniel and Teal'c go to investigate the dead people, and Jack and Sam stay with Svetlana. And she realizes the DHD would have shut off when the nerve gas protocol went on. So the power keeping the gate open is coming from somewhere else.
Hey.
And Jack and Sam's like, well, it could be coming from like the other side of the gate. And she's like, oh yeah, the black hole incident. I remember.
We all remember the black hole incident.
Um, which just sketches Jack out because he's like, this bitch knows everything. Do not care. Do not care for that. Um, but so we find out that the Stargate in Russia found a gate completely submerged in water that had some like crazy energy properties. So they kept a small container of the water, which is now gone, and the gate is locked onto the water planet, even though they weren't supposed to dial back there until after Dr. Markov got him back.
Yeah.
She's like, but there's still a receiver on that planet, so we can activate and see what's going on over there. So they activate the receiver and they find out that some of the men just like went through the gate and died, even though they were going to drown, which is obviously confusing because why did people kill themselves?
Yeah. I mean, if
Uh,
you're releasing nerve gas and you don't die immediately, like maybe you're in a lot of pain. A lot of bad things are happening in your body.
right, but like drowning isn't pain free.
Well, maybe they didn't, maybe they thought they were gonna like hit the wall of the gate where they should like die immediately. You know, like maybe they thought the other side was closed when they jumped in.
I
You know what I'm
mean,
saying?
yeah, but they'd have to be really stupid to
Look,
think
I'm
that
not here
that's
to
what
judge
happened.
their education levels, their mental abilities. Who knows? Maybe they are that stupid.
I don't know. It looked like they voluntarily offed themselves, which then turned into a really weird side conversation between me, Doug, and Dan about what countries have the highest suicide rates.
I thought you were about to say a side conversation on the show, and I was like, I don't remember a side conversation on the show. Is it Japan with their forest? Or is it America
Japan,
with our insanity?
no, actually. So Japan used to be the number one.
Mhm.
Japan is probably 4 to 5 times higher than almost anywhere else in the quote unquote like civilized world, like modern world or Western
Right.
world. Their levels compared to the UK and the US are astronomical. And the number one cause of death in Japan for people between 15 and 45 is suicide, for both men and women. But as of 2019, which is the most recent study, because they don't do the study every year, as of 2019, the actual highest country is Lesotho, which is the
Is
little
it
tiny
Africa?
country. Yes, it's the country that's in the middle of South Africa.
South Africa is a dangerous place, though, I hear.
South
Like,
Africa
well,
is the
not all of
10th.
it, but like a lot of
Yeah, South
places
Africa is the
very
10th
dangerous.
highest.
Yeah.
Um, Lithuania and Russia are the only European ones on the list. Um, but
You know,
but yeah. But yeah, so
interesting.
we
I'm
have
glad to hear we're not the highest.
mm-mm. We're not even in the top 15.
That's excellent. Way to go, US. Way to go.
Yeah, but actually, one of the things that we were talking about, like that Doug and I were talking about, surprisingly, when you would think about places where with high death rates, like places in the Middle East currently, like Syria has a very high mortality rate in general, but Syria only has two out of like their suicide rate is 2.0 out of 100,000.
But there's like
But
murder and stuff.
well, that's what Doug was like. When your government is killing you and you're at war,
Yeah.
you don't have time to be depressed enough to think about suicide.
Right, right.
He was like
Yeah.
the factors that cause suicide rates to be high have to be somewhere where death is not imminent, like you're not at war, but you have
You
things
know,
like political strife or poverty at high enough levels that death is always on the horizon in your thought process. Or you have to be in
that's
some
fair because
place.
we do have really high murder rates here in the US, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's why it's not as high.
But you
Granted,
also
they're not
have
like governmental.
right,
Mostly, I'm
and
sure
so
there's some, but not like
yeah,
majority. Majority is like civilian murdering others, and
yeah. But you
that's
also
not cool.
have places like South Korea and Japan that are very high because their
Mhm.
societal pressure is insane.
That
And
makes me think China would be on that too, though. Like,
yeah, but China's a place where the government kills you.
right. Sorry, I forgot. Mixed up my deaths. My
Right.
apologies.
Yeah. Um,
We're gonna get shut down in every country. By the way,
we've just offended everyone.
we are now blacklisted.
Russia
America will
hates
probably keep
us.
us.
Russia hates us. China hates us. It's
I did
fine.
say go US, so like we're probably fine in America.
Yeah. We'll be great in America.
So it's totally fine.
Um, where? Oh, what the fuck? Sorry, I lost my place so hard. Um,
We'll be spiraled a bit, so
oh yeah. So the water container is gone. But they have the receiver on the property. They find out that everyone is there is dead. So they also figure out that the drone itself might be what's keeping the wormhole open because it's activating whatever energy was in the water.
this
Um,
was fun.
so they were gonna turn it off. So she tried to turn it off, and she goes, "Oh, it won't respond to my command." And they were like, "Okay, well, like let's just wait till the battery's gonna die." And she was like, "Ooh, about that. It's nuclear power." And Jack was like,
We'll die
"What?
first.
Huh?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was set to be able to take data for 10 years."
Lies. She's like, it was going to go to space and take data. No, they're spies. You know that those are Russian spies on like drones. That's why they needed to be.
10 years. 10 years. Doug goes, "Can you imagine having to be the person that tells the families of the SG teams that are off-world that they're stuck off-world because Russia has a nuclear power drone keeping the gate open for 10 years?"
Yeah.
um,
So what happens if you throw the drone through the Stargate? What?
what do you mean? It's not a nuclear bomb. It's just powered by nuclear
No.
fusion.
But like, if it's on this side, keeping the
Yeah,
gate open because of the nuclear power, can
but
you
it's not on our
throw it
side.
through?
It's not on our side. It's in the water.
Oh, I missed that. I understood
Yeah.
on our side because I was going to say, like,
No.
if you throw it to the other side, does it like break the connection?
No, it's in the water, but it's being magnified by the electric heat particles in the water, which is keeping the
I
gate
see.
open. Yes.
I see.
Sorry, that's why I was
Yes.
confused. I was like, throw it back? I don't.
I missed that specific thing.
Um,
My brain
so
spiraled on nuclear drones after they said it, and I had no idea what happened next. So
fair. Sam, Svetlana, and Daniel get in a submarine to go through the gate. There was a comment in this part that Doug thought didn't make sense, and apparently also so did everyone making notes on IMDb, but it was based on a joke. And I was like, I'm glad everyone on IMDb who's talking about goofs didn't fucking get the joke. Because in the beginning of the episode, Svetlana is talking to them about what happened with the Russian submarine, in the season premiere. And Jack says, I have no idea what you're talking about. So then when they get the submarine out, Jack goes, how many people fit on that submarine? She's like, only 3. He goes, oh, darn, I've never been on one. It was a fucking joke about the fact that he had been on the submarine. And nobody fucking got it. Everybody was like, what do you mean he hasn't been on a submarine? Wasn't he just on a submarine 5 episodes ago? Yes, that was the joke. That was the whole fucking point of the dialogue. I'm so glad no one got the joke.
Callback. Have you ever watched a comedy before? Callbacks. They happen. I mean, I didn't catch it, but I also like didn't hear him say it, so I wasn't like thrown off by it. But
yeah. I was like,
or if I did, I watched it yesterday, so it's possible I heard it. And like,
yeah. You know. Well, Doug didn't see the first conversation. Like he didn't come into the room till after the first conversation, so he missed the first conversation. When I then explained that Jack and Svetlana had that conversation, he goes, "Oh, I get it." But the reviewers on IMDb, come on,
real upset.
Yeah.
Watch a stand-up comedy.
But so before they get in the submarine, we also find out that 28 bodies were found of the 47 people who were supposedly there in the base. And there are 5 men floating in the water. So that puts us at a total of 33. So we are still missing some people. Yeah. Also, it is kind of weird because they're in this water and there is no plant or animal life anywhere in the water.
Which is like the epitome of water.
Correct.
If you have nothing else, you have plant and or animal life in water.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like a water bottle.
Yeah.
But then suddenly the submarine stops moving forward and just catches on fire. Turns into one of the funniest conversations about Russian-made machinery, where Daniel is being Jack and just being a complete dick about Russian-made machinery. And Svetlana's like, if you want to keep talking shit, just so you know, the submarine was made by the Swiss.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, so it's always on time.
I want you to know, it's unrelated. Every time we haven't talked about Daniel Jackson in a while, and then you mention him again, I immediately think you're about to tell me a conversation you had with Dan. Like, I immediately think you're Dan, not Daniel Jackson, because we've like not talked about him this episode.
Yeah, because he's kind of useless this episode, except for some dumbass comments every once in a while.
Yeah. Which kind of felt a little bit out of place. He's usually not the snarky one. Like,
he's not, but then he even says, oh my God, I've been hanging out with Jack O'Neill too much. Like, he knows. He's like, I don't know what is wrong with me. Why? But it's because the conversations with Svetlana need a little snark, but Daniel had to go in the submarine and Jack couldn't because the story wouldn't have made sense if Jack didn't. So, like, they needed to give Daniel some snappy one-liners.
Right.
But they even knew it felt wrong, so they also gave him a one-liner about the fact that it felt wrong.
But, like, I feel like what they actually did was they were like, Daniel, you're not really talking this episode, so just kind of, like, when you feel like you should, just say some stuff. And then, like,
say exactly what you think Jack would say. Because we really
just, like,
wrote this
do whatever
scene we really wrote the scene for him, but then we also wrote the other scene for him, and we didn't write anything for you, so just, like, go for it. But back in the Russian creepy base, Jack and Teal'c smell something, and they find like the kitchen with something like burning inside an oven, and somebody frozen in the walk-in freezer. Now, my question is, did you recognize the frozen person right away?
Not right away, but before they said it.
Okay.
Like, so when first glance, I did not, because I was taken aback that there was a frozen person. Yeah. But then, like, once I looked at him, I did recognize him.
Well, so there's a frozen person. I was taking notes. I wasn't really looking at the thing. I pause it, and my Dan goes, "Oh my God, look, the Iceman has a name." And I just looked up at the screen and I go, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, Dan. Yes, Colonel Mayborn has a name. And Doug runs back in the room because he had walked up. Doug walks back in the room, was like, "Was that? I thought that was Harry Mayborn, but that couldn't have been." I go, "No, it was." And he goes, "I don't fucking remember him being in this episode at all." I go, "Me either. I'm real curious." And Dan just goes, "Well, where do you think they got all the information about the Stargate people?" And I just go, "Oh, that's right. We arrested and fired everyone who was a spy for him, so he just switched fucking teams to Russia. That sounds like a Mayborn fucking thing to do." And
Sure
Doug goes,
does.
"That does sound like a Mayborn thing to do."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very strange that he was in this episode, but like I don't know, maybe he was on contract for a few more episodes and they were like, yeah, this is a good one. Let's put him on Team Russia.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't either. We go back and forth between Jack and Teal'c and Mayborn and the sub scene a couple times, but basically Svetlana's trying to fix the sub, but the pressure is also increasing, which doesn't make sense because they're not moving. So that's weird.
Right.
Jack and Teal'c take Mayborn out of the freezer, and despite him being frozen and dead, he's breathing. So obviously he's not frozen and dead, which that's weird.
Just regular frozen, not dead frozen.
Yeah, because the human body can do that.
Look, it's happening. That's why Walt Disney froze his head.
So Svetlana says, I'm just ignoring you.
You don't want to get into my conspiracy theory? Fine. I'll ignore it.
No, but I do have conspiracy theories to get into when we talk about The Exorcist, so it's fine. Just you wait, people.
Can't wait.
Svetlana in the sub says that like the last time they went through, the engines had to like work hard to push through the gate, but she thought it was just like normal pressure from the gate, so she didn't think anything of it when the engines like weren't working. Then we flash back to Mayborn starting to wake up. Then we flash back to Svetlana. She finally gets the engine back up, but it doesn't move at all, and it starts to crash again. But so then back at base, Mayborn finally wakes up, and he starts to like zombie walk around the kitchen, and Jack like yells at him and tries to shoot him, and instead he just like stops and throws up some weird water.
Okay, hold on. We need to pause. The visuals on this scene, not great. This was like, and we know the show could do better visuals. So when we have this like weird spewing, it's like he's like holding one of those like water hose sprayers just like behind his head.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't.
What it felt like.
Yeah,
I was just like,
although to be fair, I feel like anytime you're watching someone vomit on film, it's weird because it always just feels slightly off.
Yeah, but even so, like I don't feel like it felt like as off with Teal'c, and maybe it was because the angle we were at. Like, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like award winning with Teal'c, but it wasn't as bad as with Mayborn. I felt like,
yeah.
So that was
no,
just
you're
like,
not wrong.
I mean,
was like, but are we saying that Christopher Judge is a better actor than Tom McBeath? I mean, we're not saying that. So, but so the weird water, like after he throws it up, it like vaporizes into Teal'c, and Mayborn like grabs Jack and runs back into the freezer. And that's
it's like we're watching
weird.
The same shows at the same time, except one is a demon and one is water.
Yeah, it was fucking weird. And then back underwater, Svetlana tells Daniel and Sam that they were supposed to wait for her to run the tests on the water sample, and they didn't. And honestly, she doesn't even know if the water sample is water. She has no idea. They did not even do a chemical analysis on it at all.
That feels like step one.
Just, you think? So then we flash back to Mayborn telling Jack that the water isn't water, it's living organisms that want to go home. They want to get back through the gate, And basically, they came out of the thing, they mixed with the air, they turned into vapor, they entered these scientists, and then tried to go back home. But then the soldiers got freaked out by the scientists and their weird alien zombie walk and shot them. So then the vapor left the scientists and went into the soldiers, and it turned into a whole thing. And then the colonel got scared and set up the protocol, and the weird alien particles did basically threw Mayborn into a freezer to save themselves.
Just like Horton Hears a Who. Isn't that the one with the flowers that bounce around with the plant, like the towns on them, or is that the Lorax? I always get them.
Oh, that is Horton Hears a Who.
Yeah.
I understand now what you're saying. I didn't know for a fucking second where that was going. I was like, I'm pretty sure Horton doesn't shove anything into a freezer to stop it from being nerve gassed.
No, but the planets, they're just trying to get somewhere and they keep just bouncing around. And it's like, just let these poor little water creatures go home. Like, just let them be. You can't hear them if you're not the right creature, so they're probably screaming. Like, what are our Doctor Who creatures that sing instead of scream or whatever? You know what I'm talking about? The
The Ood?
The Ood? Yeah, just like the Ood. They're just screaming all the time.
Or like those weird aliens from season 1 that are white and die when they hear sounds.
They didn't scream, though. Who knows? They probably were screaming, too.
Yeah. It's just
I would be screaming if I looked like that.
But anyway, Daniel and Sam also at the same time come to the conclusion that this water is probably alive, and that is the issue. But back at base,
Daniel.
Jack tries to stop Teal'c, and Teal'c fights him, and then back in the water, the sub window breaks, and instead of like flooding into the sub, the organisms just like stop at the window until Daniel decides to fucking touch them. He's like, they just want to get to know us. How the fuck do you know?
I was like, it doesn't want to understand you. It wants to eat you. Granted, it worked okay, but like,
yeah. So
it just
Daniel,
looks like it wants to eat him.
So Daniel sticks his hand in, and then of course it starts to devour him, and then everyone goes to try to save him, and they all get devoured. Surprise. Back at the other side, Teal'c dials the gate, and once the Stargate is open, he throws up the water and sends it back, and is like, they never wanted to hurt me. They just wanted to go home. And then the gate opens again, and like fucking yeets the other three back in. In a painful way, and they're like, we don't even know what just happened. And Jack is like, obviously it was just a hostage exchange. And then
he's like, I think we just exchanged hostages. And I was like, I think you're right.
And then the episode ends. Yeah, bonkers. But I do have a boatload of trivia.
Ooh, I love it. I'm gonna just like, if you're watching the camera, I'm moving a lot because my body is in pain. So
I have some goofs and some triv. I'll start with the goofs because some of them are not real. But this is a plot hole. When the Stargate forms there, and there's the vortex that destroys everything in its path, the water contains life forms, so billions of them must have died every time the Stargate opened. And yet, the small amount of life forms in a flask of water is like enough to get the gate to open twice for them to return.
I'm sorry, I do not understand. I did not follow.
So Stargate opens, whoosh, right? That will kill anything that touches it. We saw it in a bunch of episodes. So if the Stargate is submerged in these weird alien life form things, it opens, whoosh, everything in that way, all of those life forms dead. So why were the 12 that are stuck in the flask enough worth opening the Stargate 3 more times?
I think it's different because they're water. Like, because they're like water forms. And so like the Stargate is like watery. So maybe it
It's a
doesn't
plot
kill
hole.
them.
Maybe not, but either way, it's a plot hole. There's no explanation for it.
No, there's no explanation. That is correct. That is valid.
Um, the error in geography, the Russian map at the beginning of the episode has borders that are incorrectly depicted, where the border between Russia and China is depicted as if Mongolia was part of Russia and did not exist.
Just get that out of here. We don't need that. Well, now we're blacklisted in Mongolia. It's fine.
Yeah. No, you just blacklisted us in Mongolia. That was all you.
That was just me. We're a team.
The outline of Russia presented at the beginning of the episode has two Russian cities marked, and both of their names are either misspelled or victims of faulty font usage. Vladivostok is written by VPAPP Vostok because they don't know their Russian symbols. And Magnitogorsk is written with a pound sign and a Latin R. Like, it doesn't even make any sense.
Did we not have Word then? When did we get Microsoft Word?
No. I mean, it's just because they're using the English alphabet and some of the Russian symbols, because the Russian alphabet isn't the same as the American alphabet, but they don't know what they're doing.
But I'm saying, like, the people who did the show
didn't have
had access to these symbols, right? I think surely
you would fucking hope somebody's seen Russian before. Again, error in geography. Magnitogorsk is one of the two Russian cities marked on the map, but it is in fact Western, not Eastern Russia. So what is actually marked would be more likely to be Yakutsk.
They just picked some things.
Revealing mistakes. The keypad at the Russian Stargate room door features an imprinted note in Russian, and it says Vodstrogo Propolskum, meaning entry only with passes. However, it uses the Latin R multiple times and a G once, whereas the Russian language never uses either.
Bless their hearts.
Although the SGC has been using the beta Stargate discovered in Antarctica since Small Victories, the point of origin of the Alpha Stargate is clearly visible as opposed to the point of origin of the beta Stargate. So they just didn't actually change which gate was in the gate room when they did the props, even though they originally made them look different, which was dumb. This is a spoiler, but it's a spoiler listed as a goof, but then remarked to be incorrectly listed as a goof. It said originally, Mayborn should have been incarcerated for his involvement with the thefts of alien technology in Shades of Grey, and here he is found in Russia helping with their Stargate program with no explanation as to how or why he's there. Due to the amount of information Dr. Markov has about the American Stargate program, it would seem Mayborn has become a traitor and is providing a lot of information to the Russians. Mayborn's even seen wearing a Russian uniform. O'Neill doesn't seem remotely surprised with Mayborn's presence, and he doesn't ask any questions about Mayborn's complicity with the Russians. But the implication is that Mayborn was too well connected to be caught up in the theft bust, and O'Neill wasn't overly surprised to see him in Russia because he's always been slimy. At the same time, though, the two men had little time to chat about this, and as a viewer can assume the confrontation happened off screen.
And I thought it was just Makepeace that got arrested or whatever, wasn't it?
Makepeace and the lower, yes, you're correct. Makepeace and the lower people got arrested. Mayborn was too high up to actually be arrested, but all of the people who were working for him were now no longer working for him, so he needed to get stuff from elsewhere. So he
I was not remotely surprised. I mean, I was surprised to see him there, but not for these reasons.
Correct. Yeah, no. because you and I both understood correctly that he did not get arrested. The person who first wrote this did not understand that, and that's why it's incorrectly regarded as a goof, because it's not a goof. He was not arrested.
IMDb morons.
Um, at one point, Carter points at an instrument inside the mini submarine and says, "Our depth stays the same, but the water pressure is increasing. A depth gauge, however, is nothing but a water pressure gauge with a different face marked in units of depth. It should therefore also show increasing depth whatever the water pressure rises, and all they do is look out the window to determine that they aren't sinking any further." This one is there's a continuity error, but it says O'Neill states he's never been in a sub before, yet in Small Victories he made multiple trips on a Russian sub to eliminate the replicators. More than likely he's just being snarky. No shit. You missed the joke.
Never would have guessed.
Factual errors, the Russian personnel are wearing American style dog tags. That's not a thing. When infested, Teal'c is attempting to return through the gate. He gets into a scuffle with O'Neill in the gate room, and it can be seen in the background that the gate is offline since there is no event horizon visible, while it should be connected to the water world. That is listed as a goof, but also it's not because he had to redial the water world to get there. I don't know how they managed to turn off the thing, but they did. So that's weird, wrong. When the sub's bubble cracks, we see and hear breaking glass, but submarines of this type use high-strength acrylic, not glass, as their windows. So, because a glass would never
Glass
survive
would immediately
that.
break. Yeah.
Dr. Markov is wearing rain pattern camouflage for the parachute jump, and while this pattern was used by several Warsaw Pact countries, such as Poland and East Germany, it was never used in the Soviet Union or the Russian Federation. And while Colonel Mayborn's frozen body is being laid on the table, you can clearly see his neck moving. So that's not a thing that they could have done. But, so those are all goofs. But I also have 3 pages of trivia, too.
Oh my goodness. Good thing we didn't talk very long in the episode.
I know. Marina Sirtis beat 19 other actors for this role, 17 of them actually Russians. At her audition, her Russian accent was so good that after the first take, they told her to tone it down so that she could actually be understood.
That's so funny.
Kurt Russell visited the set during the filming of this episode.
Ah, sweet baby angel. Did he realize that Richard Dean Anderson's better than him?
I mean, he did show up in an Elvis costume and have an absolute fucking blast on set, so I don't think he gave a shit.
Yeah. I mean, he's Kurt Russell. He probably didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marina Sirtis's character mentions that 47 people are trapped in the base. This is only on the trivia because the overuse of the number 47 is a running gag in Star Trek. Because 47 is the most frequently chosen random number. If you ask people to pick a random number, 47 is almost always the number that is picked, which is a very weird thing.
I did know that because it's also used in comedy a lot.
Yeah, and it's the magic number at Pomona College in Claremont, California, which is a lot of the Pomona alumni were on the writing team for Star Trek, so the number 47 got thrown into Star Trek a lot, and then because Marina Sirtis was in this episode, they picked 47 as the number of people on the base.
I love it. I thought you were going to say Stargate, and I was like, I'm looking for all of the 47s, like the question marks. Is it Parks and Rec that has all the question marks in it?
Yes, or Psych and the Pineapples.
Psych and the Pineapples, I was so ready, and then you said Star Trek, and I was like, well, in 10 years when I watch that, I'll keep an eye out, I guess.
Yeah. So. The transport aircraft that they board at Kuibyshev Air Base in Siberia was actually a USAF C-130 belonging to the California Air National Guard, sitting on the tarmac at Boundary Bay Airport, south of Vancouver.
There you go. We're in all of the wrong parts of the world.
Then there's another trivia about Teal'c and Jack and the fucking submarine that doesn't make any sense. In Russia, females actually last names always end in a vowel. In Russia or in Russia, your last name is also gendered. In terms of
I was trying to think what Adam's last name is. or Kira's. I don't know either of their last names off the top of my head. Those are my two
Um,
options.
but so Dr. Sirtis's character's name probably would have actually been Dr. Markova, not Markov. Markov is a male last name.
Like Marie Sharapova.
Yeah, Marie Sharapova is who I think of every time. Or like Nadia Comaneci. Yeah. The title Watergate was initially a joke, but then it became the official title. And last but not least, the idea of a story set in an underwater world was conceived in planning for season 2, but the production company did not have the technical capability or budget for the special effects at the time, so they pushed it back. Season.
Bless their heart.
Yes. So,
yeah, we are in season 4.
Yeah. Most of the goofs and trivia were just about the fact that whoever made this episode really wanted to bring the Russians in for the future implications of the Russians knowing about the Stargate program, but clearly didn't know shit about Russia.
Yeah, that's what it tracks.
Because everything is wrong. Like all of the trivia, when you boil it down, all of the trivia is either like there's the funny thing about 47 and Kurt Russell, and then there's the submarine thing over and over and over again, which is not even correct. And then everything else is just that they don't know Russian.
Or geography.
I mean, to be fair, Russian geography is hard.
Look, to be fair, geography is hard. But true. Like, if you're doing it for a show, do your research. Research is not that hard.
Research is not that hard.
Remembering it is hard.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, only a little bit will I give them credit, because also like research was a lot harder in 2000 because Google was only like
we had encyclopedias.
I didn't say it was impossible. I just said it was harder. Yeah, they had encyclopedias, but like now we just Google shit. In 2000, they couldn't just Google shit. Not everybody had Google.
Google didn't even have Google.
What did it? It was
what year did Google come out again?
1999.
Okay, so we did have Google.
We did have Google, but it's only been around for a year. It's not like a thing yet.
It's not yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, who do you want to punch in the face?
Mayborn.
Obviously.
I'm like not going to get a ton more options. So like.
Right. There was really only 7 people total in this episode. Yeah, like Hammond, Mayborn, Markov, and then our 4 normals. That's literally the only people. Oh, and Sergeant Harriman was pretty great in that first scene. But so, okay, cool. There's 8 people in the whole episode. So if you're gonna punch Mayborn, which is the correct answer, I'm gonna punch Dr. Markov for not believing that the Russian military would just do what they wanted when she walked away.
Yeah. Who is she to think she's in charge of the entire Russian military?
I mean, she's a scientist, great, but she's also a woman.
Yeah.
And we were just banned in Russia again.
Look, we probably were banned before this episode. I'm sure we did something else that we weren't supposed to. Who knows?
Who is your MVP?
No one was like great. No one was terrible. But I guess I'm gonna have to go with Tilk because he's the only one that like treated these aliens like normal people. Like Daniel's like, they just want to know us. Let's dive into their like water circle. And Tilk's like, they just want to go home, dude. Like, we'll just let them go home. Everything's fine. We're just going our way.
Agreed. Tilk really was the only great one. There wasn't a lot else. I mean, Jack did help Teal'c with the parachuting and did refuse to stay stuck in the freezer. So those were pretty good things. Hammond did pull all the right strings to make sure that Russia knows that we own their asses. So that's pretty good. But I'm going to choose someone who most of what they did was stupid, but the things that they did that weren't stupid were my favorites. And that is Daniel, because yes, he did stick his hand into the water when he really shouldn't have, but he also was the only one who was like, hey, why don't we figure out how to get out of the sub instead of just counting down till we die? And also his jokes about the Swiss watchmakers and the submarine were really funny. So, yes. And because Daniel, very uncharacteristically, was not afraid of jumping out of the plane. That was baffling to me.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, Svetlana clearly, she works in Siberia. She probably jumps out of a plane all the time because everything's frozen up there. Jack and Sam, Air Force. They know how to jump out of a plane. Done. Teal'c, clearly terrified. Daniel,
well, if you think about it, he's like super science, so he's logical, and so he's like, I'm not gonna tell you how parachutes work.
Yeah, no, I know that, but his like unwavering, just like, okay, cool, I'm jumping out of a plane now, just felt a little less Daniel-like than I would have thought. So
if you asked me 4 seasons and a movie ago, I would have said yes. But he was trapped on a planet for a year. He watched his wife die. He's watched other people die. He was not possessed by the guardian Mother Earth lady, but thought he knew magic for a while and was like floating, and like he was stuck in alternate realities. He watched his parents die over and over in alternate realities. He's almost died multiple times. And so like at this point, like jumping out of the plane is probably one of the safer things he's done.
That's fair. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to tell you for spoilers for next week's episode because I genuinely can't remember about this episode or if it starts with the very important conversation of when of Jack and Mayborn discussing the fact that he is a Russian traitor. I don't know if they address that in the next episode or if they just address it sometime down the line when it's no longer what I'm thinking
we don't care anymore.
Correct. But so I do know that there's definitely aliens in the next episode.
I thought you were going to say death. So you almost had both portions of us in there. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Aliens it is.
Yeah. I guess that's fair. It is sci-fi. So sci-fi Sunday. We should have some aliens. But if you have any thoughts about Russian spies or actually, if you have thoughts about Russian spies, don't email them to us because I'm pretty sure we will already be on every government watch list. But if you have any thoughts about this episode and about Mayborn as a Russian spy, then you can definitely email us.
Or if you have any thoughts not about Russian spies, you can email to us, but put quotes around it. So
exactly. Yeah, so do that at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all the social media at Death and Aliens. You can follow me personally everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can find me at CECloud13.
And with that, we will see you for Thriller Thursday. Bye.
Bye.